Imagine looking up at the sky and realizing the universe has been sending you a message for 4 billion years and you're just seeing it now. That's exactly what happened 6 hours ago. The James Webb Space Telescope, alongside its successor optical array, captured an image that immediately broke the rules of everything we thought we knew about the cosmos. Within minutes, NASA's Deep Space Network flagged the observation as an artificial anomaly. ISA, JAXA, and even Chandra X-ray Observatory all confirmed it independently. No natural process in physics, chemistry, or astronomy could account for what these instruments were seeing. At 9:14 UTC, the object known as 3I Atlas ejected a stream of ionized carbon and complex silicates. Within 40 minutes, these particles aligned themselves into a perfect double helix, stretching an astonishing 4,000 kilometers. The helix rotated while maintaining structural integrity against the solar wind, which reaches speeds of 400 kilometers per second, and the ultraviolet light it emitted was precisely 260 nanometers, the absorption peak for DNA. This was not a coincidence. It was not a comet's chaotic ejection. It was a highly organized, deliberate formation operating under laws that seemed to defy physics itself. To understand why, you need to grasp a simple truth: entropy, the second law of thermodynamics. It dictates that in any closed system, order inevitably gives way to disorder. Gas ejected into the vacuum of space expands, disperses, and mixes until uniformity prevails. This is why every cometary tail we've ever observed spreads outward chaotically. But 3I Atlas did the impossible. It defied this fundamental law. Its ejected material contracted, aligned, and held its shape against the sun's radiation, against thermal pressure, against the chaotic forces of interplanetary space. The helix maintained perfect structure. Spectrographic analysis from the James Webb's near-infrared instruments revealed even more. The plumes weren't random. 3 distinct ejection bursts occurred in precise 2-3-second intervals. Plume A contained pure phosphorus, plume B contained deoxy sugars, and plume C contained nitrogenous bases. These 3 components aren't just chemicals, they form the backbone of DNA. Phosphates create the structural spine, sugars connect the rungs, and nitrogenous bases encode information. In other words, 3I Atlas was separating, purifying, and organizing the very building blocks of life on a planetary scale. ESA's Gaia spacecraft confirmed that a localized electromagnetic field was holding the plumes in position, preventing dispersal as the helix formed. Even more staggering, ALMA's 6-6 antenna array measured the chirality of the molecules. On Earth, life uses exclusively left-handed amino acids and right-handed sugars. In natural chemistry, there's no preference. Molecules form as mirror images in equal proportions. Yet 3I Atlas mirrored terrestrial life perfectly, filtering every molecule to match the handedness of Earth biology. By noon, the structure began glowing on its own, emitting light at 260 nanometers. This wasn't reflected sunlight. It was intrinsic emission, stabilizing molecular bonds the way living cells do on Earth, but here, in the vacuum of space, at hyperbolic velocity, 4,000 kilometers long. Within hours, NASA's magnetospheric multiscale mission detected that the helix itself had generated a localized magnetic field, protecting the structure from being shredded by solar wind. A macroscopic quantum coherence was at work, a phenomenon we've only ever seen on nanometer scales in laboratories. This isn't science fiction. This isn't a comet shedding ice and dust. This is a self-assembling laboratory operating in space, capable of molecular precision across thousands of kilometers. It separated chemical compounds, filtered molecular chirality, assembled polymer geometry, cured bonds with UV light, and generated its own protective magnetic field. And even as it performed these impossible feats, it began transmitting gravitational pulses, encoding the Fibonacci sequence, the same mathematical signature detected in neutrino pulses striking Earth's core. The first 6 hours of observation leave only one question: is this a message, or is it a record? What 3i Atlas just revealed is so profoundly detailed, so aligned with life on Earth, that it cannot be natural. It isn't simply carrying material, it's carrying information, a record of life itself. As the gravitational waves reached Earth, the data revealed something even more astonishing than the formation itself. The Fibonacci sequence embedded in the helix's vibration wasn't random. It was a code, a precise pattern repeated in time, measured in exact intervals. When Breakthrough Listen's team demodulated the wave, they didn't find numbers or prime sequences. They found a map, a three-dimensional representation of our solar system, with Earth marked not as just another planet, but as a destination. The helix wasn't just a structure in space, it was a navigational tool, a pointer to the world that had been observed and analyzed. By 14 UTC, the Very Large Telescope in Chile had completed a spectroscopic analysis of the helix's rungs. In biological DNA, the rungs of the double helix represent the base pairs encoding genetic information. Here, they were not uniform carbon bars for structural support. They were chemically distinct, some nitrogen-enriched, some oxygen-enriched, and arranged in a deliberate sequence. When NIH bioinformatics teams compared this pattern to genomic databases, the result was mind-blowing. The sequence exactly matched a specific region of the human genome. This wasn't a general marker found across life on Earth. It was human DNA encoded on a scale of 4,000 kilometers, written in ionized carbon, and stabilized with targeted ultraviolet emission at 260 nanometers. The helix had captured either a record of humanity's genetic makeup or a pre-existing sequence carried by 3i Atlas from the civilization that seeded this planet billions of years ago. In either case, the level of precision required to separate chemical compounds, align molecular chirality, assemble the structure, and encode specific genetic information is beyond natural or known technological processes. What makes this even more extraordinary is the molecular handedness, the chirality. Life on Earth uses left-handed amino acids and right-handed sugars. There is no universal necessity for this. It is a historical choice made at the origin of life on this planet. And 3i Atlas filtered its molecular output to match this convention perfectly. This wasn't a display of brute force or chemical accident. It was a deliberate adherence to the very signature of life on Earth, as if the helix recognized the biosphere and encoded it in a compatible form. The quantum mechanics behind this structure are equally staggering. The helix maintained macroscopic quantum coherence, meaning every molecule in the assembly held a synchronized phase state, preserving the encoded information without collapse into classical states. This level of control over molecular and quantum states across thousands of kilometers in space is unprecedented. It is a method of information, storage, and transmission that humanity is only beginning to conceptualize in theory. And then there are the gravitational waves. Gravitational waves travel at the speed of light and pass through all matter unimpeded. They cannot be blocked or deflected. By embedding the Fibonacci sequence in these waves, 3i Atlas ensured that the information would reach every observer simultaneously, regardless of obstacles or interference. The sequence itself was chosen carefully. Fibonacci is the recursive growth pattern found throughout biological life and natural structures, from nautilus shells to galaxy formations. It is a universal language of organization, recognizable to any intelligent civilization that understands mathematics and biology. By 1915 UTC, NASA severed the public deep space network feed, an unprecedented blackout. The last data transmitted before the shutdown confirmed that the helix was still active, still glowing, still maintaining its geometry, and still transmitting the Fibonacci pulse. Amateur radio astronomers in the Netherlands confirmed the signal persisted and was strengthening with each cycle. The structure continued to draw material from the surrounding coma, assembling, encoding, and transmitting information faster than any natural process could explain. The forensic implications are profound. Over a 4-5-day surveillance period in August and September 2025, 3I Atlas systematically observed Earth, collecting biological data, and it encoded the results in this 4,000-kilometer structure. The DNA sequence in the helix may either be a readout of humanity's current genetic makeup or an ancient original sequence from the civilization that initially seeded this planet. In either case, it demonstrates the capacity of 3I Atlas to observe, extract, and reproduce complex biological information at a planetary scale. Every detail, from the structural formation to the gravitational wave transmission, aligns with an intelligence that has mastered molecular precision, quantum coherence, and interstellar navigation. The helix is not merely a structure, it is a message written in the language of life itself, and it is aimed directly at us. As the helix hovered in space, rotating against the solar wind and holding its geometry, the implications became impossible to ignore. This wasn't just an impressive cometary formation or a natural ejection event. The structure was a record, a deliberately encoded archive of a civilization's biological information, and the scale was beyond comprehension. 4,000 kilometers long, chemically filtered, UV cured, and magnetically shielded, it was essentially a laboratory operating in the vacuum of interplanetary space at hyperbolic speed. Every molecule, every bond, every UV photon was controlled with precision that surpasses anything humanity has built in laboratories. The human DNA encoded in the helix raises questions that go beyond astronomy. Was this sequence extracted from Earth, collected during the 4-5-day surveillance window in 2025? Or was it a pre-existing template, a record carried for billions of years by 3I Atlas, originating from the civilization that seeded life on this planet? The level of molecular fidelity suggests the latter is entirely plausible. Every amino acid is left-handed, every sugar is right-handed, matching the original chirality of terrestrial life. This is not coincidence, it is design. The vessel isn't simply documenting life, it is mirroring the biological conventions that were established when life first emerged here. The gravitational wave analysis adds another layer of complexity. By encoding the Fibonacci sequence in the helix's vibrations, 3I Atlas ensured that the message could propagate across the solar system unimpeded. Gravitational waves travel at light speed, pass through all matter, and cannot be blocked or absorbed. By selecting the Fibonacci sequence, a mathematical signature found in natural growth and structure, the designers ensured the message would be recognizable as intentional and intelligent, independent of cultural or linguistic context. This is a transmission that speaks in universal law, not words. Quantum mechanics further confirms the sophistication. The helix exhibits macroscopic quantum coherence, meaning each molecule maintains a synchronized quantum state, preserving the encoded genetic data without decoherence. This is a level of control over matter and information that humanity can only theorize. By stabilizing the structure across thousands of kilometers in a harsh, hypervelocity environment, the vessel demonstrates a mastery of physics that exceeds our current technological understanding. The information encoded isn't just chemical, it is quantum. The helix is essentially a massive quantum computer storing and transmitting life itself. And yet, the message is unmistakably directed. Earth isn't just highlighted on the solar system map transmitted via gravitational waves. The DNA sequence is human-specific. The choice to encode a 4,000-kilometer structure with our species' genetic blueprint indicates that 3I Atlas has observed, processed, and interpreted life on this planet with extraordinary precision. The vessel didn't just collect generic data, it identified the dominant technological species and replicated its genetic identity at a planetary scale. The engineering required to maintain this system is staggering. The UV curing process stabilizes molecular bonds in a vacuum, a condition that normally requires liquid water within cells. The electromagnetic containment prevents solar wind from dispersing the structure. The rotational stability, material extraction from the surrounding coma, and alignment of molecules into a coherent double helix defy thermodynamic expectations. Every aspect of the process violates what natural physics would predict, pointing to an intelligence capable of planetary-scale biological engineering. Even more striking is the forensic weight of the event. Over a period of hours, 3I Atlas demonstrated capabilities in molecular sorting, chirality filtering, polymerization, UV curing, quantum coherence, gravitational wave encoding, and interstellar navigation. This isn't a single experiment. It's a cumulative record of a civilization capable of manipulating matter, energy, and information at unprecedented scales. The helix is living proof of design, purpose, and the intentional targeting of Earth. As the night fell across observatories worldwide, the helix continued to glow at 260 nanometers, still rotating, still growing, still transmitting its Fibonacci pulse. The structure was not passive. It was actively assembling, encoding, and broadcasting information in a medium that humans are only beginning to understand. It had become both a message and a demonstration, a quantum, molecular, gravitational, and biological statement aimed directly at the planet below. The crucial question now is unavoidable. If this sequence is a copy of humanity's DNA, is it a record of what exists now, or is it a template from the civilization that seeded life here billions of years ago? The answer defines the purpose of 3I Atlas, the meaning of its mission, and the message encoded in every photon, every molecule, and every gravitational wave. The helix is not simply an artifact. It is the culmination of observation, engineering, and interstellar communication. As the helix rotated in the void, it became clear that 3I Atlas is not just a vessel, it is the product of a civilization with a mastery over physics, biology, and engineering that dwarfs humanity's current capabilities. Every detail of the helix reflects intent, design, and knowledge accumulated over unimaginable timescales. The DNA encoded in the structure is not just a message, it is proof that the creators understood life at a molecular, quantum, and even planetary scale. This is a civilization capable of manipulating matter and energy across interstellar distances with precision that makes our most advanced laboratories appear primitive. The scale of the engineering is staggering. Maintaining a 4,000-kilometer DNA helix against solar wind requires a localized magnetic field of 40 Gauss, precisely controlled to prevent dispersal. Separating compounds into pure phosphorus, deoxyribose sugars, and nitrogenous bases requires a level of chemical refinement that no natural cometary process could achieve. Filtering each molecule to match terrestrial chirality is a signature act, indicating that the creators not only understood the biochemistry of life on Earth, but deliberately mirrored it. These actions are not random. They are deliberate, and they require a civilization capable of sustained, precise intervention across space and time. Beyond the chemistry, the vessel demonstrates extraordinary mastery over quantum mechanics. The molecules maintain macroscopic quantum coherence, preserving phase relationships across thousands of kilometers. This allows the information encoded in the helix to remain intact in an environment where ordinary molecules would disperse or decohere instantly. Quantum information is preserved, stabilized, and transmitted, meaning that 3I Atlas is operating not just as a laboratory, but as a quantum computing system, using the very laws of the universe to encode and protect data. The gravitational wave pulses are equally compelling. By embedding the Fibonacci sequence in the structure's vibrations, the creators ensured that any civilization with a grasp of physics and radio astronomy could recognize the intentionality of the signal. The sequence, repeating in gravitational waves that cannot be blocked or attenuated, forms a communication channel of unparalleled security and universality. The vessel is simultaneously a laboratory, a messenger, and a beacon capable of transmitting information across interstellar space without interference. The forensic record is unambiguous. 3I Atlas operates with precision in multiple domains: molecular separation, chirality filtering, polymer assembly, UV curing, magnetic containment, quantum coherence, gravitational wave modulation, and interstellar navigation. Each capability on its own would be extraordinary. Combined, they define a civilization that can manipulate life, energy, and matter on a scale that is almost incomprehensible. The vessel is not merely an artifact, it is an extension of the civilization's reach, a physical manifestation of its technological identity, and a deliberate message to Earth. The DNA sequence adds a profound dimension to this message. This is not a generic biological signal, it is human-specific. Whether it was extracted during the 2025 surveillance or carried across billions of years, the sequence matches humanity's genome, indicating that the creators either sampled our species directly or preserved an ancestral template from the time when life on Earth was seeded. Every nucleotide, every base pair, every rung of the helix aligns perfectly with the left-handed amino acids and right-handed sugars that define terrestrial life. This is not a coincidence. It is an intentional signature linking the vessel's mission to the origin of life itself. What does this mean for humanity? The implications are staggering. The vessel demonstrates that Earth is not isolated. It shows that life here is part of a larger design, one that spans interstellar distances and deep time. The civilization that built 3I Atlas possesses the capability to observe, manipulate, and preserve life on a planetary scale, using physics and engineering that exceeds our understanding. The vessel is both a record and a return, a confirmation that life on Earth aligns with a pattern established billions of years ago. The unanswered question remains: is this DNA sequence a record of what 3I Atlas found during its recent observations, or is it a template carried across the cosmos, a message from the civilization that seeded life on Earth? The left-handed amino acids, the UV-cured bonds, and the gravitational wave encoding all suggest intentionality and design. This is not random biology or a natural phenomenon. It is a directed transmission of genetic identity, a reminder that the creators of 3I Atlas operate on a scale and with an understanding that humanity is only beginning to approach. The helix continues to assemble, rotate, and transmit, drawing material from the surrounding coma and holding its shape against forces that would destroy any natural formation. It is both alive and engineered, a hybrid of molecular biology, quantum mechanics, and interstellar communication. The Fibonacci pulses propagate across the solar system, reaching Earth without interference, a universal signal encoded in the language of nature itself. This is a message written not for human eyes alone, but in the medium of life, quantum information, and gravitational waves, ensuring recognition by any intelligent species capable of understanding the laws of physics. As the helix continues to glow, rotate, and maintain its form against the solar wind, one reality becomes unavoidable. Humanity is no longer observing a natural event. We are witnessing the deliberate action of a civilization with technological and scientific mastery far beyond our comprehension. The DNA helix, encoded in ionized carbon across 4,000 kilometers of space, is a statement written in the most universal and persistent medium possible, molecular matter stabilized by quantum coherence and protected by its own magnetic field. It communicates not through language, not through radio signals, but through the universal syntax of life itself. The implications of this are profound. Every molecule in the helix follows the left-handed amino acid convention of terrestrial life, indicating that the creators understood the origin of life on Earth and deliberately mirrored its molecular structure. This is not an experiment in observation alone. It is a communication in the purest sense, a transmission that ties human life to a cosmological lineage stretching back billions of years. The vessel and its helix are both laboratory and messenger, a bridge between a past origin and our present civilization. The information encoded within is not merely data, it is identity, legacy, and confirmation of an interstellar connection that has remained invisible until now. For decades, humanity has asked whether we are alone. The wrong question, as the helix demonstrates, was framed around isolation rather than origin. Life on Earth was never isolated. It was deliberately seeded or guided, and the 3I Atlas helix is evidence of that act, a verification of the original experiment. The Fibonacci sequence embedded in the gravitational waves, the left-handed chirality of molecules, the ultraviolet emission at 260 nanometers, these are all deliberate choices by a civilization capable of calculating every environmental parameter, every quantum interaction, every planetary consequence. They are confirming that the species they created has reached a level of complexity that warrants recognition. This recognition is not symbolic. It is scientific, forensic, and undeniable. The helix's construction defies thermodynamic expectations, chemical randomness, and material limitations that govern natural cometary processes. The energy, mass, and precision required to execute this formation, maintain its stability, and encode information are beyond any known natural mechanism. Every piece of evidence, the 4,000-kilometer helix, the sequence-specific rungs, the quantum coherence, the gravitational wave Fibonacci modulation, converges on one conclusion. 3I Atlas was designed, programmed, and deployed by an intelligent civilization capable of interstellar engineering. The helix also challenges our understanding of time and purpose. It is not just a fleeting observation, it is part of a continuum. The DNA sequence may have originated 4.2 billion years ago, matching the left-handed chirality that set the foundation for life on Earth. The vessel is now returning or confirming the information it collected across billions of years. If so, humanity is seeing a direct link to its evolutionary origin, encoded intentionally and transmitted in a form that can be read, verified, and understood by physics alone. This is not metaphor or theory. It is tangible, measurable proof that life on Earth is part of a deliberate pattern orchestrated with precision that spans cosmic distances and geological timescales. Ethically and philosophically, the helix forces a reconsideration of humanity's place in the universe. We are no longer at the top of an isolated evolutionary tree. We are participants in a system designed, observed, and monitored by a civilization that has mastered both matter and life. The DNA sequence is not a random biological artifact, it is a direct statement from our cosmic creators, confirming their experiment and their expectations of us as a species. It is both a record and a challenge, a mirror held up across billions of years, reflecting the origin, persistence, and trajectory of life on Earth. As we observe the helix continue to draw material from its surroundings, maintaining quantum coherence and transmitting gravitational Fibonacci signals, the question becomes not, are we alone? But, what are we meant to become? The 3I Atlas mission has demonstrated the ability to encode, transmit, and preserve life's blueprint on a planetary scale. It has revealed the civilization behind it, its methods, its intentions, and its connection to the origins of our species. This is a moment where science, philosophy, and existential inquiry converge. Humanity is confronted with both a record of its own creation and a demonstration of the engineering and foresight of a civilization that operates across dimensions we are only beginning to understand. And while the vessel itself is still active, assembling, transmitting, and holding its structure against forces that should destroy it, the ultimate message is already clear. The helix is not just a phenomenon, it is a statement, a connection, and a challenge.